My name is Thomas Boyle. I'm Superintendent of Police for the Cicero Police Department. I just want to take this opportunity to give a brief update on an incident that we had occur in our town yesterday evening in the 1800 block of 48th Court. At about 7:42 p.m. last evening, we responded to a shooting incident at that location, and upon the arrival of officers, they were met with a pretty chaotic scene. There were approximately 14 individuals in the single-family dwelling at the time, and many of them obviously were screaming and running around. They were able to determine that the event that they were looking to investigate, the shooting, was in the basement area. As they entered into the basement area, they were directed by two male adults into the basement rooms. Upon entering into that basement rooms, they found two female victims inside the residence suffering from gunshot wounds. Once the scene was secure and paramedics were able to come in, administer initial first aid, and then both female subjects, one 19 years old and one 29 years old, were transported to Mount Sinai Hospital, where they were, shortly after arriving, pronounced deceased by medical staff at the hospital. After they cleared the basement, the officers evacuated the residence and secured the crime scene. They did that for the protection of everybody in there, and they also luckily had a good Samaritan that was willing to allow them to go into their home. So most of the people that needed shelter were able to be brought into the Good Samaritan's home, which was a neighbor a few doors down. As the investigation continued, we were able to identify a suspect, Rafael Vega, and we were able to determine that he had a relationship with the 19-year-old female victim, Maisha Newby. Later in the investigation, we became aware of a 10-month-old child who was also in the basement at the time of the shooting. When we became aware of that information, we immediately began efforts to locate the child and check on its condition. We were able to locate the grandmother of the child, and she advised us on scene shortly after that that the child was in good condition and had no injuries. We were able to also determine through body camera footage that both upon the arrival of officers and throughout the investigation, multiple times with contacts with people, we inquired as to whether anyone was injured, other than obviously the two females that we were aware of. We also had additional medical staff on scene that treated an elderly gentleman that was there and some other elderly people that were on scene there that we were concerned about and wanted to make sure that they had adequate medical care. Additionally, after we became aware of this 10-month-old child, our detectives also continued to conduct follow-up interviews. They also had conversation with the grandmother again, and she advised us that the baby was fine and that there was no concern for the baby. Approximately 5:55 this morning, as we continued our investigation of that incident, we were notified of an incident that occurred in a park at 18th Street and 56th Court, and it was an incident involving a man with a gun. Upon officers responding to that location, they discovered a male in the park, apparently deceased from a single gunshot wound to the head. That investigation continues, as does our initial investigation. Preliminarily, the subject in the park does appear to be the subject that we were seeking in relation to the double homicide that occurred earlier yesterday evening. He has not been officially identified, but based on description and other factors that exist, we're fairly confident, we're very confident that they indeed are, that he is that subject and that the two events are connected. Today also we were notified at 10:30 this morning of a 10-month-old child that had been in the area of our incident last night and is the child of one of the 19-year-old female victim, Ms. Newberry. or newbie, I'm sorry, and that child was brought into the hospital by the grandmother initially at St. Anthony's, and then sought more advanced treatment at Coburn Children's Hospital. We became aware of that. We sent detectives to that location, and that child is suffering from an injury that could be consistent with a gunshot wound. It does appear to be that. The baby is stable and being treated at the hospital. What we do know is that we have 3 separate scenes that we're working, 3 separate investigations. From all appearances, they appear to be related, and obviously our investigation continues as it will throughout the night in the coming days. I'm more than happy to take a couple of quick questions, if any exist.
Did your grandparents say when they discovered the baby was hurt and what the injuries looked like, how they knew?
Yeah, in fact, we did ask that, and the grandmother said that the child was playing normally. There were no signs of any injury. She said this morning she noticed a little bit of a scratch, and then she also looked further and there was a little bit of fluid that she noticed on the abdomen of the baby. Then the baby, in the course of interacting with the grandmother, started to act a little bit differently or uncomfortable, fussy, I think was the word she used. And that's when she brought the child to the hospital, and that's where it progressed from there.
Superintendent Boyle, I know you mentioned that there were 14 people inside of the home. Did these 14 folks live there, or was there a party going on? Can you just give us some more context of what was happening prior to that?
Yeah, it does not appear that there was a party there. Whether they all lived there, they were all visiting at that time. Whether they all lived there, that's all part of our investigation and subsequent interviews that we'll do, or have done, or will do in the future.
And then also, can you share if it's known if the suspect, Mr. Vega, if there was some type of order of protection out against him from the young lady who was dating?
Was there an existing one? I'm sorry, is that the question?
Was there an existing
Not that I'm aware of, no. Does not appear to be the case.
Can you shed any light on what may have led up to the shooting? Family members have shared that, but you guys are aware of what may have led up to the shooting, or if it was just senseless act?
I'm sorry, would you mind repeating the question? I couldn't hear you.
Can you shed light on what may have led up to the shooting, and just how senseless it was?
The actual events that led up to the shooting are still under investigation, so we don't have those specifics yet, but it is isolated to a domestic. We are confident that it's isolated to a domestic situation. The exact context of that, I'm not at liberty to discuss because we haven't really nailed that down.
Just for our clarity, can you spell Rafael?
I sure can. R-A-F-A-E-L is Rafael. Vega, V-E-G-A.
How old?
21 years old.
Have you confirmed if the baby was shot during the initial shooting?
We're currently conducting investigation into those specifics. At this point, it's still under investigation, so I cannot confirm nor deny that.
Were there any other minors inside the home?
Yeah, of the 14 people, there were children, women, children, and also obviously some males, but there was a mixture, and there were several children in there.
There's been a couple of incidents in the area, including a shooting about a block away of another older man. Is there any relationship between what's been going on?
There's no relationship that, from our investigations at this point, there's no relationship. We are very confident in that. And the other investigation that you're referring to, we've made great progress in that investigation, and we can definitively say that they are not connected to one another.
Did Mr. Vega have any criminal background?
Regarding Mr. Vega, I'm sorry?
Any criminal background?
He does have some criminal background, yes, but I don't want to get into the specifics of that. Okay. Thank you.
Once the investigation's finished and they release the information, I'll make sure it gets out to everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chief.
Absolutely.